Hello students, welcome to next video on basic interview questions on design of steel structures. Today in this video we will discuss about welded connection. In previous video lecture we discussed about bolted connections. So what is welded connection? In welded connection, two members are connected together with the help of weld, that is heating process. With the help of weld, when you connect two members, it is called as welded connection. For example, if you have one steel plate and if you want to overlap another steel plate on this, so at the junction of these two plates here, we are doing the welding. With the help of heating process, when you weld this is called as welded connection. Compared to bolted connections, welded connection has some advantages, at the same time it has some disadvantages also. What are the advantages of welded connection? Welded connections are more economical and faster than the bolted connection. Efficiency of welded connection is more compared to bolted connection. That is, if you look at the last point, efficiency of welded connection is around 100% almost, whereas for bolted connection it is around 70%. So efficiency of welded connection is more. Then welded connections are more rigid than the bolted connection. Rigid means once you weld the two members, those members will not move. Whereas in case of bolted connection, after bolted connection also movement of two members is possible. Whereas in case of welded connection, two members cannot move in any direction once you weld those two members. Another advantage of welded connection is it is a permanent connection. Once you weld the members, you cannot dismantle it. You cannot re-weld the welded connection. But in case of bolted connection, it is a temporary connection. You can unbolt the members at any time and you can re-bolt it again. These are the advantages of welded connection. Now what are the disadvantages of welded connection? Very first disadvantage is welded connection has very less fatigue life. Fatigue life is less, it means fatigue load. Fatigue load means when you repeatedly apply load on any point or any portion of a structure, repeated loading, then it is called as fatigue load. So under the fatigue load, the life of welded connection is less compared to bolted connection. It will fail early than the bolted connection when it is subjected to fatigue load. And second disadvantage is welded connection required skilled labor to connect the two members using welded connection. Whereas bolted connection anyone can do, but in case of welded connection you require a skilled person. Then what are the types of welded connections? There are four basic types of welded connection. Very first is butt weld, which is also called as groove weld. Butt weld or groove weld, both are same. So what is butt weld is? Butt welding is when two pieces of metal are placed end to end, or you can say when two pieces of metal are placed in the same plane. In the same plane means if one plate is like this, one piece is like this, and second plate or second piece is like this. So these are in the same plane. So you can say either end to end means it is second place start after end of the first plate in the same direction. This is called as end to end, or you can also call it as both the plates are in the same plane without overlap. So end to end means there is no overlapping done, and then welded along the joint. Of course overlapping welding is also possible, but butt weld means the two pieces of metal or two plates are placed end to end or in the same plane but not overlap. Okay, now how the welding is done? So at the empty space of these two plates, here welding is done, right? This is called as butt weld. Butt welding, I repeat again, butt welding is a welding when two pieces of metal are placed end to end without overlapping and then welding along the joint. This is called a joint. Welding along the joint, this is called as butt weld. Here it is shown. Okay. So these are the two plates. There are two types of butt weld, single butt weld and double butt weld. Single butt weld means welding is done on a single side only. For example, this side if you done a welding, it is also called as half penetration weld, incomplete penetration. So one sided welding is done, it is called as single weld. And when both sided welding means if you extend this up to the bottom and this side also if you done the welding, this is called as double weld, right? This is double weld. This is called as double weld and this is single weld connection. The height of this weld from starting point to end point is called as size of weld. This is size of weld. You can say this is size. Okay. This is also size. Now what is incomplete penetration or single penetration and double penetration? If you look at these bottom figures, if you want to connect these two plates together, so on the if you start from the top and if you partially penetrate the weld up to this portion only, this is called as partial penetration. So this type of welding is called as, this type of penetration is called as incomplete penetration, or it is also called as single penetration, means only one sided weld is done. Whereas if you look at the second figure, if you start from the top and if you penetrate the weld up to the bottom and bottom also if you weld it like this complete, this is called as complete penetration, or it is also called as double penetration, butt weld. Now what is the thickness of butt weld? In case of single weld connection, butt weld connection, thickness of weld is T is taken as 5/8 into thickness of thinner plate. So out of two plates which are you are connecting, these two plates, whichever is thin, the thickness of that thinner plate multiplied by 5/8, it is a thickness of weld in case of single butt weld connection. And in case of double weld connection, thickness of weld is taken equal to thickness of thinner plate. Thickness of thinner plate and thickness of weld is same in case of double weld. This is thickness of first plate, that is T1, and thickness of second plate, that is T2. Whichever is small means thinner plate. That thickness is multiplied by 5/8 for single weld, and that thickness is equal to thickness of weld in case of double weld. Now there are some other types of butt weld connections. If you look at here, this table, there is a square butt connection, right? Square V butt connection, then square V butt with a broad root face. So if you look at these figures, this shows the shape of these types of butt weld connection. This is called as square, right? Square butt weld. This is called as square butt weld. If you look at this shape, this is V, square V. This is V shape, right? This is also V shape, but it is not complete. Here you have a root face. This is straight portion. This is called as root face. The single bevel butt. So one edge is straight and one edge is inclined. This is called as single level butt. Then single U butt. So this shape you can see this figure. This is of U shape welding connection, butt weld. So that's why it is called as single U butt. There is a double U also. If you use like this, this is called as double U, right? Then V also you can use double V. This is single V, and double V means like this. Welding is done like this. This is double V connection, right? There is a single J butt. If you look at this, this is J shape. This is called as single J. Even you can have the double J also, like this. This is called a double J connection. These are the technical symbols used to represent these different types of butt weld connections, right? Square, V, U, J type. So this is butt weld connection. Now second type of welding connection is fillet weld. So in fillet weld, what is fillet welding? Fillet welding refers to the process of joining two pieces of metal together when they are perpendicular or at an angle to each other. Perpendicularly, if they are connected or at some angle, then it is called as fillet weld. Mainly, most of the time, fillet weld is used when two members are perpendicularly, orthogonally connected, that is perpendicular to each other. So if you look at this example, it is shown, few examples are shown here. This is one plate vertical and second plate is horizontal, and if you want to connect these two plates, metal plates, using fillet weld is a triangular shape of weld. This is a triangle. This triangle is isosceles triangle, remember. So this is one edge, this one edge and this one edge. So fillet weld is always in a triangular shape, right? And at the junction of two metal plate, that welding is done, right? So this is called as fillet weld. There are few other types of fillet weld. You can see here, fillet weld on corner joints. So this is one corner joint or this is another. Here welding is done at the bottom, here welding is done at the top of the corner. So this vertical member is connected with horizontal member with this fillet weld, that is triangle. Here fillet weld is done triangular shape like this. Now here two metal plates are overlap, right? So therefore it is called as fillet weld on lap joint. Okay, so since these two plates are overlap, right, this is called as fillet weld on lap joint. So at the junction of these two plates, here welding is done, right? This is called as lap joint, fillet weld lap joint, and this is fillet weld T joints, like this example, right? This is called as T joint. One member is vertical, other member is horizontal but extended on the either side of vertical. It looks like a T shape. That's why it is called as T joint. In this, fillet welding is done either on one side or both sides. This is double fillet weld and this is single fillet weld. Here also, if you provide only one fillet weld, it is called as single lap joint, and if you provide at both ends, it is double lap joint, right? So in fillet weld, two members are mainly connected perpendicular to each other. This is first point to remember in fillet weld. Second, the welding is of triangular shape, which is isosceles triangle. Okay. Now if you look at here some technical specifications of fillet weld. This is one vertical member and horizontal member connected with this fillet weld, and this is a triangle. This lower point of welding, fillet welding, is called as root. So distance of this point up to this inclined line, this is called as thickness of weld. This is thickness of fillet weld, right? And horizontal distance, this horizontal distance is called as size of weld or leg size. It is represented as S. So this horizontal distance is size of weld and this inclined distance is thickness of weld. So how to calculate, or what is the relation between thickness of fillet weld and size of fillet weld? T is equal to 0.7 into S, right? 0.7 into S. So T is the thickness of weld, S is the size of weld, T equal to 0.7 S, where S is equal to size of weld. Now as we discuss in the definition here, either two metal plates are connected perpendicular or at an angle, you can use the fillet weld. So at an angle means if they are not perpendicular, what angle range you can use? If you want to connect to inclined plates using the fillet weld, these are the two inclined plates. This is first plate and this is second plate. So if you want to connect to inclined plate using fillet weld, this angle of inclination, this angle should be between 60 degree to 120 degree, right? So in fillet weld, angle between two members should not be less than 60 degree and should not be greater than 120 degree. Only for those two plates at an angle you can use the fillet weld, right? Here you can use the fillet weld in triangular shape. So this is second type of weld, that is fillet weld. Now other types of welds, that is spot welding, spot weld. Spot welding is the welding with joining overlapping pieces of two metals by applying pressure and electrical current. If you want to overlap two metal plates and if you want to join these two metal plates, if you look at here, spot welding is done at a point by applying a high pressure. At the same time, electrical current is passing through that point. So that is called as spot welding. The meaning of spot is this welding is at a point. So if you look at here, this is spot weld, right? This is 3 points where welding is done. This is called as spot weld. So high pressure is applied at this point, high pressure, and at the same time electric current is also passing through the point so that they can be welded. If you look at this first figure, when two plates are overlap, this is called as spot weld on a lap joint. Okay, this is also spot weld. Here it is, welding is done at a particular point. Okay, this is outside corner. This is a corner joint. This is inside corner. This is outside corner. Right? These are exactly placed. Two metal plates are kept on each other. So two overlapping pieces using spot welding. This is spot weld. At the point, spot weld is done. Right? Next types of welded connection is plug weld and slot weld. It is important to understand both parallelly. In plug weld, a circular shape of hole is done on the one of the plate which you want to weld. Plug welds are circular welds used to fasten two surfaces together through a small hole in one of the surface. So one plate kept on another, this is overlap on the second plate. So what is plug weld is, on the top plate one circular hole is done, right, which is completely penetrate on the first plate and partially on the second plate. If you look at this top view, this sectional view, if you provide a hole here like this, if you provide a hole, so first plate having complete hole and second plate is partial hole. So if you provide a circular hole on the top, complete top plate and partially on the bottom plate, and then if welding is done, this is called as plug weld, right? So circular hole is provided on the one surface or one plate completely, and the partial hole is provided at the lower plate, and then welding is done. This is called as plug weld. Whereas second type of weld is slot weld, where a slot is provided when the normal length of the weld is not available or which is not sufficient, right? If you weld the two plates and if a normal length or sufficient length of weld is not available, and still if you weld it, it will not resist the external load acting on the plate. So slot weld means two plates are kept on each other and then one square shape of slot or portion is removed from the top plate, right? This one slot is provided, and then welding is done on the all four edges of the square. If you done it with the single line, then welding length is this much available only. If it is not a slot, if it is not a slot, you can weld like this complete. Here also, suppose if you want to weld it, you have to weld it like this. But still, if load is high and this welding length cannot resist that external load, you have to increase the length of weld. But now there is no provision here to increase the length of weld. So in that case, if you provide a slot, you are getting four edges of this slot to be welded. So automatically length of the weld will increase. So what is slot weld? In slot weld, we are providing a slot, or we are removing a portion of one plate, we are creating one slot, and we are welding all four edges of that slot. Here if you look at this figure, this one edge, then this second edge, this is this third edge, and this is fourth edge. So addition of all four edges is nothing but length of the weld. So automatically the strength of this weld is increased and it resists the high external load. So understand the slot load. In slot load we are removing the portion of one plate and we are doing the welding at the all four edges of the slot. So these are the four important types of welded connection, that is butt weld, fillet weld, spot weld, even plug weld, and the slot weld. So out of these all welded connections, the most important to understand is butt welded connection and fillet welded connection, which are most commonly used in the steel structures. I hope all of you understand what is welded connection is. In the next class, we will cover the next basic information about the design of steel structures. Thank you very much.